Board of Education. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Cordero?
Yes, here.
Mrs. Flores?
Here.
Mr. Lara?
Here.
Mr. Valencia?
Present.
Mr. Hollinshead?
Here.
Public comments. Public comments are intended for members of the public to address the Board of Education on items involving the school district. Such testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each person, 450 words, and 15 minutes each topic. If an answer to a specific question is requested, the board president will, if appropriate, direct administration to respond in writing. First on our agenda, which is actually has only two.
We do have a public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am sorry.
And you know what we didn't have on the agenda was the flag salute.
Okay, so before we hear public comment, let's stand for the flag salute. And I usually remember that. Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And our public comment?
We have one public comment submitted this evening by Annabelle Primrose of Santa Maria. And I believe Brian's going to let her in. I saw her, Annabelle, in the waiting room. She's there. And Ms. Primrose is in the room if you'd like for her to submit her public comment. Annabelle Primrose is in the room to submit her public comment.
Okay. We are ready and waiting, Annabelle.
I don't think she's unmuted.
You're muted, Annabelle.
Start again.
There you go. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Annabelle Primrose. I'd like to thank the board for this opportunity to speak and to thank Mr. Ontiveros for his tenure as our superintendent, as well as for the gracious meeting we had right after I retired when he listened to my concerns that I was leaving behind. I speak tonight about my concerns for the future of the district. The district has a history of being a leader, both locally and nationally, as a successful school system. Our greatest asset has been one that recently has been overlooked and at times belittled. The district seems to be headed toward one that is data-driven rather than data-informed. Whoever you choose to lead us next must choose advisors who know the difference and utilize our assets before looking to paid experts who know little of our kids, our families. I've counted at least 7 different language arts systems or approaches that we've tried over the decades to address our students' needs. Every one has failed us, but each one has also succeeded. Each approach included information for the teacher that says, in essence, you may need to supplement the kernel curriculum to suit the needs of your students. None say only use the kernel. That wonderful asset we have, our professional educators, need to be allowed to use their skills to make it work, not put in a box and treated as humans off the street. Whoever leads us will have to find a balance between the data gatherers and the professionals in the classroom. I would hope that long-standing assets like CNI, COT, and action teams can be reactivated. These, in my experience with teachers around the country, are an exceptional asset. They have allowed us to meet in professional capacities to identify needs, research solutions, create local remedies, and make changes as needed. And as the financially focused among us, these teams of teachers, administrators, TOSAs, etc., are cheap compared to the buying of commercial products and outside experts. The method of selection for superintendent needs to be informed also, and I'm pleased that data from the community will be solicited. It's important to be collected in English, Spanish, and Indigenous languages, as well as from professionals and support staff. Incomplete, outdated, irrelevant, it is harmful. Similarly, the data gathered ad nauseum from our students stealing precious instructional time is not informing instruction. Instruction now is being driven by what the purchased curriculum and the pacing guides say to do. Trust your professional educators. Whoever you choose, the challenge will be great. Whoever you choose must embrace the community, not see them as troublesome data to be remedied. Whoever you choose must have a vision for our kids' future that includes the assets we have. Whoever you choose must be a companion on the journey, not a combatant. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments, public comments?
There are no other public comments submitted.
All right. We do not have a consent agenda this evening, so I would accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
I second.
Okay, it has been moved by Mrs. Flores, seconded by both Mr. Lara and Mr. Valencia to approve the agenda as presented. Roll call.
Mr. Hollingshead,
Aye.
Mr. Valencia,
Aye.
Mr. Lara,
Aye.
Mrs. Flores,
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero.
Aye. First up on our agenda is item A, superintendent search process and discussion. And I will hand it over to you, Mr. Ontiveros.
And we will directly turn it over to Dr. Van Leeuwen and Dr. Verdugo.
Well, good evening. We're certainly glad to be back in a whirlwind experience to come back here. David and I are both here. David, you want to say something as well?
Just wanted to say good evening and thank the board again for the opportunity to work so closely with you and the community.
So I'm going to be using a screen to be able to share some things. And this is the agenda that we're going to be planning to go through, our working agenda today, in which a lot of these things, well, several of these things have been done already, and we'll talk to those, but the lion's share, after we decide some of the logistics of this search, will be down here at the bottom, which is dealing with the board input. So let's start and everybody should have a copy of this. We'll talk about remind you about the search process, and we can use the timeline to do that. But in essence, this is the first start of it, where we're going to approve a timeline. We're going to get some feedback from you on anybody that you would like us specifically to address in the community. We're going to share in this timeline the different components of it and get you to approve that. And well, we'll just jump into it. So usually what we do in the very beginning is to, I guess, I don't know if that's showing or not. I'm going to get rid of that. Is in case we need a little bit of direction, we usually get board liaisons to kind of go through and get some help. And usually it's the board president or vice president or clerk or however we have that. So we would like to see who might be able to do that for us on step number 2 on this. Nothing fancy. It's just if we need to get a little bit of a direction.
And if I may, I would suggest, as Fred mentioned, the president and the vice president, unless there's other board members that would prefer or like to be on that ad hoc group. It is for communication purposes primarily.
Yeah.
I will reiterate that the information that we might be sending would be sent to all of the board members accordingly.
Let me address that for just a moment. We have our annual organizational meeting coming up in December, on December 15th. And our practice is that we elect a new board president and we basically rotate through the positions. So it's, I guess technically we elect, but the practice is that you move into the next seat and so that everyone gets a turn. So my term will be coming to an end in December, and Mr. Laura will be moving into the seat of board president, and Mrs. Flores then would move into the seat of vice president. I'm happy to go with that. If that is what we need to do, and I'm also happy to continue since we've started this process. So it really is up to the board members.
Does it just have to be 2 liaisons or could it be multiple?
It should be 2, so we don't have Brown Act issues.
Okay.
Yeah. It could also be 1. I mean, we've had all sorts of situations. Usually it's 2, just for more than one person hanging out there.
I'd be happy to do it. Can you have like a sub case I can't be there?
No, I think that's why there would be 2, Vita, and that's a great question. I think if Ricky were to assume the role, then you as the vice president would be that second liaison, wherein if Dr. Verdugo or Dr. Van Leuven needed to speak with Ricky or there was something that he was unable to provide, that you would be available in his stead.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
It's an easy assignment. I'll just say that. It's not like a pressure-filled experience. It's just for us to be able, if we need to communicate something, or ask some questions, we can do that. Okay.
Okay.
We good?
So since that is our process, it seems reasonable that the liaisons would be Mr. Laura and Mrs. Flores.
Okay. Good.
And we apologize, we forgot about the annual and very common reorganization opportunity in December for typically all boards. So thank you.
Okay. We have already actually been having a number of conversations behind the scenes, and so information from our support staff to your support staff and regarding templates and board language has already started coming on and going between us. That's for number 3. We have your email addresses and we're okay there. 4. 5 has a number of pieces. And I'm going to we'll talk about the board affirmed stakeholder groups, and I'll put that up in just a second, but we usually take what's on the website in terms of the narrative for the community or the description of the district. We will tell you that when we develop our position profile that we will want to get the majority of the board to approve it. And we're going to be also talking about the surveys. We talked last time about one in English, obviously, and then also one in Spanish. There weren't any other languages. Well, there are other languages, but I think those are the only 2 that we'd be able to deal with for that part of it. Okay, so let's go to examples of different kinds of groups, and there's a sheet that's been provided, and this is just has generic things. And I know you guys are a great board and have looked at all this stuff. Is there something that's missing on this that you want to make sure that we cover? So, and we're doing number 1 right now. So we will be, and if the board approves, well, the board's going to approve a timeline that we'll deal with, and we will pick all these people up in that period of time when we do come in and do the individual sessions. But is there anything that you see? These are generic, obviously, but is there anything that you see that we've left out?
This is John speaking, Dr. Van Leeuwen.
Sure.
I'm looking at number 12, students and student board reps. I know that at the high school level, there are commonly student board reps from the different campuses. We've talked about having junior high reps before, but it really has not come to fruition. So my thing would be, or my thought would be to really try and figure out how we could meaningfully engage students about their thoughts in our district, because we're elementary or K8. It might be a little different than unified or high school districts.
Well, we've dealt with usually upper level middle school kids, so we've done that part of it. They also will have access to the survey too, so that there's different ways of doing that. So yeah, we can work our way through that part of it.
I do know that, or I believe that our junior highs do have ASB officers.
Mhm.
So I would personally suggest that would be a really good place to start. They either have an ASB or a leadership group on the campus.
Yeah, those leadership groups that have presented to us recently, you're right, Linda. That'd be great.
Right. So I would suggest that those would be, I know there's one at Fessler. I know there's one at El Camino. They all have, okay.
That's fairly common. We've done that before, so that's good.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can see in here that any special organizations that aren't on? I mean, we have some they're generic things, education foundations or business partners. Is there anybody else that very specifically that you want us to deal with?
Go ahead, just speak up.
Yeah, something that I definitely would recommend is I believe our district has like an Indigenous advisory group. I forget the specific name of it, Luke, but I think it's been mentioned on a couple of occasions before. So I want to make sure that our Indigenous families have an opportunity where they can, share their thoughts.
Sure.
And then also we have a local organization here called Future Leaders of America, who are young people who advocate for improvements in our educational system. And their acronym is FLA, but it's Future Leaders of America. And many of these are young people that have graduated from our elementary and middle schools, our local schools, and that are now at the high school level. So I would love to hear that student perspective. I really appreciate Mr. Hollinshead for bringing that up, the importance of elevating our student voices. So those would be two key groups that I would recommend are included.
Okay, good ones. Okay.
And for number 14 and number 19, I think kind of go together.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen that.
That would be parent committees, and to me, that really says PTA, PTSA, PTO, that kind of thing. And when you listed the DLAC, or English, we refer to it as DLAC, District English Language Arts Committee, Language Acquisition Committee, excuse me, and our District Advisory Committee. We also have an LCAP committee that incorporates some of our, what I would consider business partners,
Okay.
Fighting Back Santa Maria and Family, right, FSA, Family Service Agency.
I would also include our migrant families, also
Right.
from Migrant Ed. So let's make sure that they're also included.
I'll ask about Allen Hancock College in the relationship that you have with both the high school and Allen Hancock. Would you want somebody from there, like the president or somebody, to give feedback, or is that an issue or not?
That would probably be appropriate. We have,
Since there's been a focus of fifth graders to the campus to
right.
do field trips and opportunities there to get them familiar with actual school campus and college.
Yeah, I tell you, I agree, Vita, that I think we're, with the CTE visitation and talking with Luke and other folks representative of that, and Sarah Cameron, the opportunities they're really trying to see or seek are K through 14. So I think you're right, Dr. Rambo, and to really include those folks is probably a good thing.
Well, he's going to get tired talking to me because we talked to him for Orchid. We also talked to him for the high school district. So
Right.
it's all good. He loves giving feedback, and he's really good. So I think I think that would make sense for what you're doing. Is there any are there any specialty any clubs or outside that are specific that you want us? I mean, Luke and staff know who these folks are, but is there anybody that we want to make sure we don't leave out?
How about the Boys and Girls Club?
Okay.
Well, with that being said, probably the
YMCA as well, yeah.
They actually
They're
are
partners.
facilitators for our after school program.
So all I heard was boys and girls clubs, and stuff that was not picked up on the microphone for me.
I'm sorry, YMCA,
Okay.
because they actually are the facilitators and they provide the staff for our after-school programs.
Perfect.
I was going to ask a question on the PK groups. Do we have those groups or connections to the groups or individuals in the groups, just as survey individuals or discussions? Because we've had several graduations through different sites, and so they may be willing to participate a little more after going through the program too. And
Yeah, we would have access to those more recent ones. I'm assuming that a number of those folks would also be part of school site councils and.
I would
as
hope
well.
so, but I don't know.
Yeah, but we
And
can get
would
that.
also be part, the survey will be sent out to all
Correct.
of our families, correct?
Yes, it will be.
And it'll be
Yeah.
posted on your website, and when we talk to the business partners that Chamber of Commerce and those folks, they will spread that amongst their group too. So this will spread a lot longer.
If I may, Fred, I appreciate Vita you bringing that up, because I was wondering the same thing, because our PK families recently, graduated from the program and are, looking for ways, right, to engage with our school community. So I would love to see us specifically outreach to them, right, so that they can continue with their learning and give feedback.
Well, certainly.
I would also include, if possible, we have some local civil rights organizations such as LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how active they are these days, but I know that they're dedicated to educational advancement in our community. And also the American GI Forum, which is very similar to LULAC in certain ways. And then also I would reach out to the our local NAACP.
Okay.
We used to have a network of seniors that would volunteer at our school sites. I'm not sure what the status is because of COVID. And I'm trying to remember who used to house that organization. Gosh, 2 years and it's like left my brain here. But we used to have seniors that would come in and volunteer at our school sites in reading. Oh, I'm going to have to think about that, but that's a whole network of individuals who would partake with our students. I'll think on that one.
It's okay. We can add it. So remember, we're reaching out to people. In some cases, people will choose, which is fine because it all goes the same place. We'll take the survey route. But what's important is that I think the community see that you're specifically going out and seeing more than just a survey, that you're trying to engage the community, which is really important.
And
Okay.
if I may, going back to Linda's point about combining some of these groups. So for example, number 19 and number 14, when we have the opportunity to have kind of a natural combination we would advance the idea that these people join us in one larger group. So for example, the YMCA and Boys Club might be considered a service group or club, and they would be invited to one session where we would have the opportunity to obtain from them the characteristics that they're looking for. PK might be a little bit separate. It might have its own opportunity to have a session with us, as those parents, as Mr. Valencia mentioned, have advanced and have now the opportunity to have a stronger and bigger voice.
I think Rotary and Kiwanis could be included with that group as well. There are student groups on not every campus, but a few from both of those organizations.
What about Altrusa?
Our group at El Camino, since things have not started back up, is not really active at this point.
Okay.
Okay. So we feel pretty good about the broad-based list.
Yeah, we really don't have booster groups. And I'm looking at education foundations, and while the Scholarship Foundation of Santa Barbara, ultimately our students when they're in high school apply for those scholarships, but they're not based out of Santa Maria, and I can't think of any other foundations here locally that would have or need or want input.
The only one that's specifically not on this thing is we have neighboring feeder districts, but you also have the Santa Barbara County Office of Education's got an office in there. And would you want us to include the county superintendent as well?
I think that would be fine.
Okay.
As part of a group of,
Yeah.
you know, the surrounding, yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Van Leuven, did I say that correctly?
You can just call me Fred. We're okay here. Yes, Van Leuven is the correct way of saying it, though.
And Fred, have we discussed on whether they're gonna, our input is gonna be able to be from the community in person and through Zoom like we're doing now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you please let us know if you have the capacity to do both for those that can't come in person and for those that prefer to talk to you in person?
Yeah, it's going to depending on what rooms look like and what your space is like and how many people we're going to put in a room. All the rules that you have, we're not going to violate any of that stuff. I mean, it's easier for me because I live 30 miles away from it. David's like far enough. I would probably say we're going to be Zooming it given the timeline, and and if in fact we have this thing approved, you're going to be within your 30-day window that you just had for having meetings. So I would say, although I'd like to dream and say it's nice, I'd probably say we're going to be Zooming it.
Well, I would only add, Mr. Valencia, that we've had the opportunity now, of course, as a result of the pandemic, to do primarily Zoom, and there's still some lingering aspects of the protocols in face-to-face. There are some advantages, obviously, in face-to-face, but the Zooms that we have conducted have been very successful. And I think there's been satisfaction on the part of the end users for that. But we do want to make sure that we can capture as much as possible. And the numbers have been high in numbers or volume with Zoom.
Yeah.
No, I definitely can appreciate, right, given the challenges that we're in this COVID environment, right? So I would definitely wouldn't want to put any of our staff, our community members in harm's way. But I also see the value for those families that have a hard time, right, connecting through technology, right? And also just the personal touch of talking to somebody and meeting somebody one-on-one obviously still goes a long way. So I would understand if it's not possible, right, to do it in person, but if there is the possibility of meeting with at least one or two groups in person, I think that would also be really important for our families, if possible.
I know when we dealt with Santa Maria High School District, there was folks that had technology issues. And so some of the schools reached out to those folks to help get them hooked up to computers and try to get their input. So I'm sure there's things that we can work with staff to be able to get to that point so we can get as many people included. I mean, the schools know who the parents are and who the kids are and better at the level that we're at. But we're sensitive to that part of it. And in our old ways, we would be sitting in a room someplace and people would come or they wouldn't come. I mean, that's the part of this thing. Now we're seeing a tremendous amount of participation. To be honest with you, more in the survey. And we'll have a number of opportunities in our 3 days that we have for people to join us. And if it works, they do. It doesn't, but they certainly are going to participate. I feel pretty confident on the survey opportunities. So, but we hear what you're saying. We're just like you guys. You want to have board meetings. We're in person, just like and doing that. And you're trying to all figure that out. It's just like everybody else is. So, okay, we good on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So we just affirmed the groups, and we will work together and do all that part of it. All of this stuff that we're going to gathering from the survey and these meetings that we're going to have, we're going to create a position description. And again, we already talked about the need for taking something off the probably your website that that's changed since the 2016 document that was created, and I'll be able to share that today too. We also we've talked about. I'm assuming Spanish and English would be the ones that we'd want to be dealing with for the survey, and we've kind of gone through that one. Okay, so let's be bold, and let's actually talk about and this is the timeline. So here we are on the 17th, gathering all this information, talking about on today the approving a timeline, which is what we're going to look for, and getting input from you. We have this opening up in 2 days, and we're ready to pull this. It's really easy for us to flip a switch to open a survey. Just again notifying everybody that it's available, and we have it going all the way until December 3rd. So there's a lot of time. We've already actually started talking to people outside in terms of the recruitment part of it, and having conversations with folks. EdCal, we're sort of set with because we can't maneuver when they're going to be. EdCal is the AXA advertisement, and we cannot control when that is because they have some publishing dates and dead dates. And so we picked at this moment, we have the 6th and the 10th. We're looking for the closing of this applications on the 20th. The next thing, so let's stop there. Are we okay with what we've described so far? Anybody have any heartburn with any of that stuff?
No.
Okay.
So
here's
Fred, there's just one thing that I was wondering.
Yeah.
For the online survey dates, they're scheduled for November 19th through December 3rd.
Yeah.
And we know that the Thanksgiving break is coming up for a lot of our families.
Yep.
So starting for us, it'll be next week that the students, will be off. And so I'm just wondering if that might interfere at all with the potential for survey results, or has your experience been that there's more potential feedback because folks have the time, maybe to do it? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think what's really important is we're going to make this really available to a whole lot of people by advertising it. Getting something in the newspaper would be pretty cool. I think you have Parent Square and sending those things out, and principals talking with parents and the different meetings and those kinds of things. It does get a little bit complicated in terms of the timing, because we would like to have the homework that you're going to have is when this thing closes on the 1st, we're going to turn this thing around very quickly and get a executive summary to you and a position description for you, so that we will have that somewhere around the 6th, so that when people start asking for the application, people will start asking for, I think I told you last time, we'll start asking for applications now without even knowing what they're looking for. But we want to have that as close to the 6th as possible. So that's your first homework assignment as a group will be looking at this position description or profile and giving that the green light. And then we have it. So that's the piece that we have. So we're, again, the hard part is that for us, which is what we do, is we're going to turn this thing around. So you have an executive summary and you have a profile that you'll be able to shoot holes in it either way or either way. And then so we're going to need your feedback fairly quickly, probably that first week in December when this thing closes. So that right after that, I don't think it's a problem. This is one of the things we factored in, and we're also stuck with a December 6th, and it's dead until January 10th. We do not, I will say, I don't think we want to go any longer because you are going to be up against a number of districts that are going to start declaring that they're going out. And when we do this, we're looking at having you interview on February 10th. So you can see there's a real quick turnaround from when it closes for us to vet. The pressure is really on us to get this done, and we will get this done. Your part is seeing how these work for these meeting dates will work for you for a special meeting. One special meeting is to tell us who we will vet all of them, and you'll go through all of the candidate applications and things. So deciding who you want to interview, and on the 3rd is what we're proposing, and on the 10th and or the 11th, you'd actually do the interviews. There's a little bit of play in that. But again, as we said last time, we're shooting for the March 9th board meeting, which at this moment, unless you change in your organizational meeting, which you may or may not, that would be when you're going to be dealing with your contract. So did I long-winded answer that one?
If I could interrupt for just a second, Fred.
Yeah.
Mr. Valencia, to your concern, we met this morning, Kristen and Maggie and Brian, Ricky and Tammy Castillo-Schiffer and myself around these concepts. We have the facility to use Parent Square as a regular reminder, even during the holidays. Since COVID, we see a lot of kids on weekends and the holiday periods because we got our Clever system. We can track kids logging on. They're accessing the system. And so I think we'll get a good return, and we'll make sure that we send that out multiple times over the holiday. That is a consideration, but in the larger scope, in terms of what Dr. Van Leeuwen just described, I think it's important to get things ready to roll. And Becky Banning already sent us the links to the surveys today. So any modifications that are made after tonight, we'll be ready to flip the switch for Friday.
So this is what we would be proposing. And if it makes sense for you, we would like to get a consensus that this is what we will be advertising, and it will be on our website, on your website. And this is what people will expect, that they'll make sure that their lives are free on the 10th and 11th, and they know that they have by the 20th to turn an application in.
I did just look at my calendar, and the 10th and 11th fall on Thursday and Friday, and February 3rd falls on a Thursday. Is Thursday, I'm okay with it, but normally we meet on Wednesday evenings, and it's just an observation. It doesn't matter. It's far enough out. Of course, will be there.
Linda, do you mean that your regular board meetings typically fall on a Wednesday?
Yes.
Yeah. And I would just add that as a result of this being a special meeting, it takes on a little bit of a different flavor
Right.
in terms of it being on a Thursday. So unless there's a meeting on that Wednesday prior to it, it makes it a little tough for the board, but if there's not, then it frees up that week a little bit, that day.
Okay. It's okay with me.
Can I ask for a point of clarification, really, just briefly? That the very tail end of the timeline has March, April 2022 for new superintendent begins. And I just wanted to confirm or see how that jives with the interim superintendent's MOU.
I don't understand your question, John.
Well, that I don't know when what the duration of the MOU is for the interim superintendent, and how that would coincide or jibe with that mid-March, early April new superintendent begins date or start date then.
I would imagine, John, that there's probably the ability contractually to extend anything with that interim superintendent's position, and maybe even delete should there be a need to pull back on the time frame. That's probably something that perhaps Luke can look into tomorrow. But there typically isn't a problem with that. But I understand the concern.
Okay. Yep, that's great. I just didn't want there to be something that we were looking at later rather than now.
Sure.
Yeah, I also appreciate you bringing that up, John, because I was wondering the same thing. If the superintendent begins in March and April, and we have Mr. Beecher, who's our interim superintendent, then there would essentially be two superintendents, right, operating simultaneously. And so what are the legal ramifications of that? What are the MOU ramifications? So I think that's something definitely we need to explore further.
Right.
Well, and I thought we had discussed previously that in reality, we really are not looking for a new superintendent to begin until the 22-23 school year, until June or July.
That's good.
That's
And that was thank you, Linda, because that was kind of the clarification I was seeking. That was my understanding of what we were doing. So I just wasn't sure that there was miscommunication there.
So yeah,
I think the timeline up until that point of doing the interviews, making our choice, they, depending on, how those interviews go on February 10th and or 11th. I know the one thing that I think we need to do is, if at all possible, do some kind of a visitation to where our potential new superintendent is. So that timeline after those interviews, as I see it, could be pushed out a little further. Our regular meeting in February.
You're still stuck with the March 9th date. You have some wiggle room between the 10th and March 9th. That's true. You also are going to be, if it's depending on what it is, you're going to be negotiating a contract as well. So there's wiggle room in that one because of that. If March 9th is the official date that your board meeting is, there is some wiggle room in there. You're correct.
Okay, and February 16th would be our regular board meeting in February.
Yeah. So you guys can decide if you want to do a validation visit, and when we get to that point, and then we'll just roll it in so that it will work. So there's enough time again for all that part of it.
I would assume we would want that visitation. So
Well,
do we pencil it in or just wait?
Well, we have a space for it. We can put the date in it for it, so it's hanging out there. People will know that that's there, and it'll be fine.
And just for clarification for myself and for anybody listening, Vita, the validation is when we as a board would go to the site wherever the potential superintendent is from and interview folks and things like that, right? Get a sense of the person's leadership. Is that what you're referring to? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I was under the assumption that we would do the same thing, have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, I definitely think that we should do that.
Okay. Okay, so with the exception of the March, April thing at the end with the superintendent beginning, and we move that into June, July. Then we can mess around with the validation time when we get to that to figure out officially when that goes on. We're fine with what's this draft. Okay. Okay, David, you good with all that too?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, we've talked about AXA. We did this closed session date. Usually for the application review is about 2.5 hours. Interviews, it'll be an all-day slugfest. It's really exciting. And 1 or 2 days, depending on how you want to handle it. If you generally would like to do it some other place other than the district office for confidentiality, and we can work through that part of it when the time comes. Validation we talked about, and then we've gone through that part of it. We've already started recruiting candidates, talking to people. We will give them a contract parameter sheet. Whoever you're going to get interviewed, they will turn something in, and we'll make sure that they're within the ballpark for the district, so you don't have somebody coming in wanting $1 million cold cash, because that's not going to be a necessarily a good match. But we'll make sure that we've got that sort of squared away. Number 9, Luke already sent us a copy of his contract, so we're good there. Now we're at the question mark. Do you guys have any questions about anything that we've discussed right now, and you feeling pretty comfortable?
Fred, I appreciate you bringing up the contract parameters, because as the newest person on the board, I'm not as familiar with the current superintendent contract and the benefits as it stands. So do we as a board typically look at that again prior to posting the job description as well as the pay and the benefits?
Well, it's negotiable, and we're not going to. You're going to. I mean, there's fairly complex. I would suggest maybe Luke might provide you a copy of the contract so you can see what it has, and realize that once we get a little bit farther along, you're going to want to work with your attorney to make sure that it's in line with some of the changes that have taken place, and it's more of a template. And then we will have a contract parameters where they talk about what they would like to get paid, what the health benefits are, which are usually the same as the district, what's district employees, some other pieces that are in there that they can ask, but that's what negotiations is. And you guys will figure out when you get to that point how to do that. David, you would like to add something?
Well, I was only going to say, Mr. Valencia, the contract parameters is requested by each individual that's going to be provided an interview. However, the display or providing the board the contract parameters is generally only provided to the board of your 2 finalists. We have that available. Those parameters, health and welfare benefits, vacation days, fringe benefits, salary, contract length, that is all outlined for the board to be able to review, so that if there's any questions regarding, for example, the amount of compensation or salary, that's where we begin to have some dialogue about it. But we'll help the board through that process.
I'll just throw something out there that that particular piece we did not do previously. I don't believe we asked any of the applicants to provide us with what it is that they would like. So that seems reasonable, that we don't need to know that until it gets to the point where we're actually making a final consideration. I think what Mr. Valencia was asking was to see this current superintendent's contract. And because he is such a new board member, that's not something that has actually come up at all in the last year. So I think we can do that. And Luke is shaking his head. So am I correct, Mr. Valencia?
Yes, that's accurate. Exactly. I don't recall I don't recall us as a board, right? Ever since I've been on the board this last almost a year in December, coming together and saying, hey, what is the current contract? And, do we stand by where it is right now? Is there anything we want to change? So that's, yeah, I think taking some time to review the current contract, including all the benefits, fringe benefits, pay, would be something that would be beneficial to us, as we continue to move forward in the process.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much.
So are there any other questions before we go on to the next opportunity here? Okay, we have now approved the timeline with those issues. We've talked about the extra groups that we want to add. We're looking pretty good. So I am going to stop sharing here. And I am going to make sure I have the next piece. Okay. Okay, so the good part of this process is you don't have to hear from me anymore. And David is going to be facilitating the next piece, which is us gathering your input from regarding the same questions that we're going to be asking of the community members and, in essence, what's in the survey.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
Board members, at this stage or at this point in time on that agenda, we would like to obtain from you those characteristics and traits that you feel are essential that you'd like to see in your new superintendent. Generally speaking, we can frame this in two manners: a professional profile that you consider to be important and a personal profile that you prefer or that you believe is important. Typically, if you think in terms of the Santa Maria Bonita School District seeks a superintendent who, and then you tend to kind of finish that sentence. I'll give you some examples. The Santa Maria Bonita School District seeks a superintendent who professionally has classroom experience, has been a principal, has been at the executive director, executive cabinet level, has experience working in a comparable school district with similar demographics, so on and so forth. The one thing that I know that Linda brought up previously was the so-called position description or the information that you had previously that was available to you. And that's a good start there as well. But once we gather, and Fred will take down all this information from you, we'll create a position description that has a professional profile as well as a personal profile. And then we also want to ask what you consider to be the strengths of the district and what might be some of the challenges of the school district as well. So if I may, I'll just go ahead and start with Linda, then we'll switch to Ricky, and then Mrs. Flores, Mr. Hollinshead, and we'll finish with Mr. Valencia. We can always come back should there be another thought or idea there.
And I will also remind you that I'm going to be typing this, and my typing skills are not as fast as they probably used to be. So if I get stuck or I'm, trying to capture this, I'll ask for some help.
But let me ask, does that make sense, trustees, what our task is? Okay. Great. Let's begin with Linda, if I may.
All right. Oh. And here.
All right. Are you asking questions or am I? Oh,
You're just providing us your feedback as to the characteristics and traits that you feel you'd like to see in your next new leader or superintendent. We break it into a professional category as well as personal characteristics or profile, I should say. So for example, as I mentioned, and this is just an example, the Santa Maria Bonita School District seeks a superintendent who, and then it could be has classroom experience, has been a site principal, an executive cabinet member, has experience working in a comparable school district with similar demographics. Those things that you feel are important. The only reason I pointed out the previous so-called position profile that I think, Linda, you were wise in bringing forward previously, is that that also might be, to a certain degree, a replication of those things that you see and want, skills and abilities and skill sets and so on.
Okay, I have with me the actual survey that is proposed, and I'm looking at number 6, which is asking to rank the professional experiences. So I'm going to look at that list, and I actually did a little homework. So I would rank as number 1 right now, experience in transformation and school turnaround, and I would put school/district turnaround as a very important quality. I think experience in a comparable district would be important. A track record of growing academic achievement for all students, and all means all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think experience with school/district finances, budgets and stuff is really become very critical, since right now we are flooded with grants. Not that that will continue, but I think understanding budget and how that works is important.
Absolutely, exactly. And Linda, we can circle back if we need to.
Okay.
Let's go. Okay. Mr. Laura?
Okay, if I'm reading this right, we're going off the desired professional experience sheet.
I can't hear you very well.
I'm muted. First time I did that.
Oh,
So there you go.
they're perfect.
That is not the first time you've done that.
Oh, come on. Sorry about that. Excuse me. My desired professional experience for looking for a superintendent, I would think would be as Ms. Cordero said, a proven track record. If this is the one we were going off of, right? This sheet?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Linda related to the survey for some of the initial thoughts and ideas, but really we want to capture any thoughts and ideas that you have that are important characteristics and traits.
Yeah. Well, I think with the same as Ms. Cordero, like saying the proven track record of growing academic achievement for our students would be really strong. And then as well, bilingual or experience with working with diverse communities, because we're a very diverse community. You know, we're very broad in diversity. And also the transformation and school turnaround. And then also his experience in the California public education, either teaching or site administrations.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Flores?
Yes, one of the pieces would be relationship building in terms of skills that embrace and empower all that are involved in educating our students and the students. Another one would be any previous experiences that they have with COVID. I'd be interested to see some of their past experiences with handling that, I would guess, crisis, and or other serious school issues that involve the safety of our campuses and students and all who work on a daily basis. That's a critical piece in terms of an individual who can actually foresee and or has had previous experiences in that realm.
Absolutely, Mrs. Flores. In fact, we may end up somewhat putting something to the effect of a leader who can provide strong, effective leadership and management when dealing with crisis. So we might fine tune that a little bit, but we want to get the essence of what you're looking for, and particularly important, maybe experience in providing social emotional supports of needs in students, that type of thing.
Yes, that was just going to be the other piece I was going to add on to that, because, you know, it's just taken everything to touch everyone
Right.
the last couple of years, and it's been important.
Very good. Mr. Hollingshead?
Yeah, my consideration of this was really in the context of some of the qualities that we put out there when we were hiring Mr. Ontiveros. In addition, I looked at the survey, but really hadn't considered that specifically. One of the things that Luke came around to very often was the notion of empowering our site administrators and really facilitating the relationship between our site administrative teams and their teachers. And I still think there's work to be done with that. So I think that's an ongoing process. I think that in a leader and from a professional leadership standpoint, as well as the personal, we want to have somebody who's really going to kind of be exemplary in that, as in their goings on and at the district level, but really being in contact with the site level admin and the sites to empower those folks.
So we'll empower and facilitate the work of school site teams. Does that capture what you said? Okay.
Yeah. And because I think that's really, and that kind of harks back to Linda's. I think Linda had mentioned a communication notion of communication. So there may be some redundancy there, but that really engenders a lot of two-way communication, I think. And then, I think certainly from a community and personal standpoint, we want that it would be somebody who has experience, I think, as everybody has said, in a community that's similar to ours, or has some understanding of some of the situations that our families are in and what have you. And again, as I think, we want to turn things around, or we want to, but what I would say maybe differently than turn around is I think continue our trajectory upward, but again, as also I think has been said tonight, we want somebody who is going to really celebrate not the accountability piece, just the accountability piece, not just the curricular piece, but the artistry of teaching and the collaboration of that artistry between our teachers. So I know that's a really long-winded way to say it, but I think all of education has become so focused on accountability because of the different funding that Linda was just mentioning, that we quit seeing the forest for the trees, because we're dealing with accountability and testing and all those things that start to feel like we're slipping back into NCLB. So, I mean, I think however you can word that, Fred, good luck.
Well, I said we'll celebrate the artistry of teaching and collaboration between our teachers.
You're so awesome. I don't even, I can't even believe it. It's like you're sitting there typing in a field of poppies. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Don't let anybody know that.
Yeah. So
It's
and
not just
again,
with teachers. I'm sorry, John. I don't
no, it's,
think you
yeah.
meant just with teachers, but collaboration within our whole system.
Correct. But I think that's kind of what I was alluding to with the site, but you're right, Linda. It's our class. It's everybody. It's all staff.
Okay.
And I that's kind of why I wanted to be able to look at Luke's document a little bit, because I think there was some informative language there from the qualities and goals that we set out with the last search that might be helpful to review. So I know this, we're doing kind of stuff that is looking forward, but I think we want to inform where we're moving forward from where we've come.
I did share
I would
that.
agree, John. I think you're trying to push the refresher button here a little bit.
You did, Luke? Because did you send it to me, Luke?
No, I'm sorry. I shared it with Fred and David. I can send it to you right now.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, you can. I'm on an iPhone and it'll be tiny.
Okay, to switch to Mr. Valencia now.
Go for it.
I gotta say that as a high school teacher, I so appreciate the sentence frames, because that's a good example of good teaching there, right? To give our students an opportunity to engage in academic discourse, right? So I appreciate the sentence frame of the Santa Maria Bonita School District seeks a superintendent who, and I would definitely echo my colleague, Mr. Lara, with an emphasis on someone who's bilingual or multilingual, because that person will be able to empathize with many of our English language learners. We know that approximately 50% of our students are in that category. Our district seeks somebody who's empathetic to first-generation college students. Many of our students are first generation. Many of them are come from immigrant backgrounds. Many of them are low income. So somebody who has a track record of empathizing with our students in our community. I would also say somebody with a record of listening and acting upon community needs. So somebody who's also community centric, is connected to.
Wait a minute. You're going too fast for me. A record of listening to community.
Listening and acting upon community needs.
And acting, okay.
Mm-hmm. So somebody who is connected to our local community, not just through school functions, right? But in general, somebody who's plugged in, who has a sense of the pulse of the needs of our local community.
Okay.
Someone who's a lead learner, who has a record of successful teaching experience. I know from my teaching experience that when an administrator who is evaluating educators has a solid grasp of pedagogy and is a good educator themselves, that leads to a great sense of trust, right? And of what that lead learner has to say. And so somebody with a strong track record of a strong teacher and educator, a lead learner. Also a candidate that is student-centered and that it puts the interests of students first. I know that as a board member, we grapple with many different stakeholders and their input and value that, but remembering the importance of centering students in all of our decision-making. We seek a superintendent that is visible and available to community, to school staff, to students, somebody who's at the school sites, right? So that our staff know that they have a person that they can connect to. Somebody who's approachable and also personable. Because some staff unfortunately feel intimidated sometimes to communicate, right, to supervisors. And so we'd want a superintendent that makes sure that they're approachable and personable. Somebody who's also co-creates a district vision that is shared by all community partners. And then also someone who creates a positive school culture and organizational culture, I think is really, really key also.
Wait a minute, hold it. I'm doing my best to stay up with you. So we'll create a positive
organizational culture.
Organizational culture, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then I would wrap up by saying that one of the things that I'm really proud of our school district and our board is that we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy regarding our curriculum and our staff. And one of the things that really impressed me about your organization is your commitment to ensuring that there's diversity in the applicant pools. I noticed that women and people of color were over 70% of your applicant pool or of recent hires. And so I want to highlight that to know that our district welcomes diversity and wants to put action to our words of embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion work.
Matter of fact, Mr. Valencia, one of the sentences that I had put down as a result of that was has experience in establishing effective systems, structures around equity, diversity, and inclusion to improve the educational experiences of all students and staff.
Absolutely. Somebody who has a proven record of commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Very good. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Some of the other traits that we were looking for, ladies and gentlemen, were those that actually Mr. Valencia touched upon, but you may want to add, and those were more of the personal profile things. We often hear things like seeks a superintendent who possesses a high degree of personal and professional integrity. You heard Mr. Valencia talk about approachability, visibility, a visionary, innovative leader, things of that sort. So we want to make sure we capture some of those personal aspects that are important in a leader as well. So I'll circle back to Linda at this point in time, if I may. Anything else that you'd like to add to the characteristics?
I think I heard empathy mentioned.
Yep.
So I think that's already on the list. Collaborative is very important. And I think someone who is a visionary and it has the courage to move forward or to continue moving this forward. I think that's what we found with Mr. Ontiveros, and now we just need to make sure that we have someone who can keep us on that path.
So someone who's a visionary and innovative leader.
Right.
I like with the courage to continue moving forward also. So, I mean, I added that to that part of it too.
Mr. Laura?
I don't have anything at the moment that I can think of, but if I do, I will get back.
Okay.
Unmute.
I am unmuted.
I heard Mrs. Flores.
I would just like to add just the essence of a continuation of learning. This individual continues to learn with us. The experiences I've had being on board, the school board has been a continuation of learning for me. And I was in education for 40 years, and you don't know everything. And having an actual leader that continues to provide those opportunities is very important, because that is really a base for why we do what we do, to make sure all our students are learning.
Excellent.
There's good evidence of book knowledge. Thank you.
Mr. Hollingshead? Anything to add?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that Vita, that you said that, because I think that's really kind of that openness to change notion, openness to a lot of things. And it also speaks to what you had said before about crisis. I think one of the things with COVID that we've learned from Luke and from really everybody in the district is that quality of openness to change and adaptation. And I think that's really, something, David and Fred, that we're going to have to be very cognizant of, because, if and when another crisis were to come upon us, we want that person to be able to be adaptive and open-minded. I think, as you said, Dr. Verdugo, innovative, but it's also then afterwards, I think what we're encountering now. That's somebody who is going to be able to take those things, and innovation includes taking the things that we've learned through crisis and using them as to our advantage, or to better serve our students. And so I think that probably would be my take on the personal thing, would be that openness to change and innovation. And
I think
of all those things.
I think it's fairly predictable that the crisis that educators and boards and superintendents are going to face in the future is in fact going to be the case. So that crisis aspect that Mrs. Flores first brought up and that you're reiterating, Fred and I have spoken about this, as a matter of fact. It's to a certain degree, it's just the beginning. But
Yes.
regardless, yeah.
Yes, there's going to be big ripples from that pebble for a while.
Oh yeah. The hard part is you can see it coming. So the part is, if you're astute and you guys are a pretty sharp board and you've had a good leader, that it's being able to be prepared for that before it arrives on your doorstep. So.
Well, and I think, you know, what that all goes toward is really creating and maintaining safe school environments for our staff and students. So I think that's an important aspect of that openness and collaboration and willingness to learn and make adaptations.
Mr. Valencia, I think we were going to end with you on these characteristics and traits. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Absolutely. I would say someone who embodies mentorship, somebody with a strong track record of building up diverse talent, being in such a key leadership role like superintendent, right? It's a position to build up, right? Build people up, especially a diverse pool of talent. So somebody with a strong record of being able to do so.
Got it. Thank you. Are we okay, trustees, to switch to what now, the question being the strengths of the district, things that you're most proud of? Ultimately, and I know that Fred reemphasized this, and that is that potential candidates are going to be looking at this position profile. They're going to be considering the opportunity to be your superintendent, but we often say you need to match and fit accordingly. You need to assess the district as much as they might be assessing you at some point in time. And by that, I also mean and want to say that at some point in time, we will create an executive summary, which will be available to the board to see and view as well. And we provide that executive summary to whomever the finalist is that you select. Having, again, reiterating the characteristics, the traits that you want most in your next leader, but also sharing what the strengths and challenges are, provide that individual an opportunity to begin prioritizing in their first 90 days in conjunction with the board. So we feel that that's important as well to capture. So that being said, Linda, if I may, we're going to go to strengths now, things that are strong in the district, things that you're proud of.
Well, since we were just speaking about crisis and what has occurred over the past almost 2 years now in regard to COVID and putting things into place and taking actions that meet the needs of our students and our staff, all staff, I think I'm really proud of how that has occurred in a steadfast and reasonable way. We've not been too quick or taken too long. We have been extremely mindful of the needs of everyone, all the players in the game, so to speak. And the fact that, you know, we have put safeguards into place that continue to serve us well, and I want to see us maintain that same level of scrutiny so that we can feel comfortable about decisions that we make that ensure that our kids, our staff, everyone who works in the district is able to feel okay about coming to work and being at school. So I really am, it's been very challenging, but, and I think the fact that we don't have cry from our community that, you know, we're doing things wrong and we're not doing what's best for the kids or for our teachers. I think the care and consideration has been really commendable.
Very good. So certainly the responsiveness, the responsibility as it relates to the crisis that the district has maintained.
Right.
Very good.
And I would just go on to say that, you know, over the past 5 years, you know, we have really refined our vision and our mission for student success, and are putting pieces in place and taking actions to move us forward toward ensuring that we can achieve that vision.
Very good. Thank you, Linda. Mr. Laura?
Can I come back to that one?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I was looking at the strength in the multilingualism that our district has been very supportive in pushing forward. And, you know, having been in the district a very long time, looking at biliteracy seals at the end of 8th grade, I mean, where we're giving certificates, moving into, you know, multilingual, bilingual programs is definitely a very important piece in our community. And even in our junior high schools, the possibilities of looking at getting that Spanish going again and for our Spanish speakers and offering those pieces of lingualisms that students are going to need is definitely a strength that we are building. And it has been part of a journey in this district. Also, the fiscal solvency in terms of looking at that budget and making sure we have what it takes at the end of each month that brings us to the next level, because there's been a lot of expenditures and a lot of money that have entered the district, and if it's not watched correctly and looked at and valued and input on how this is going to be spent doesn't happen, then, you know, we're not going to be a strong place. So thank goodness we've continued to have that as a strength, and we are solid. And I think sometimes people don't realize how important that piece is in running a district. You have to look at that constantly, and you have to question, you have to make sure you are aboard with all of those pieces that make that bank solid.
So fiscal management would be something certainly that's a strength.
Definitely, and you can see how that's playing into your plan of action with the learning that's being given and supported and designed.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Resources actualize your mission, whether it's money or whether it's people.
Exactly. I wanted to say something briefly about hopefully when that individual comes in and looks at our district, that the strength is that there's always been a good plan in place. Understanding the plan sometimes takes more of a journey, but there's a solid plan there. And it's always been the same message and the consistency in terms of that outcome that we're looking for. And that message has never changed. So that's a strength, because that's a consistent story, a storyline in our journey while we're doing all of this work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'll stop right there.
Okay, Mr. Valencia?
I would say that our Central Coast families are one of our major assets. We have such a hardworking community, strong farm worker community, and our families have such high hopes and dreams and aspirations for their young people. And I've noticed that our families are willing to go above and beyond to do whatever is necessary to help them get the best education possible. Our young people are our biggest asset. You know, they're smart, they're eager to learn, I get to see the benefits of that as a school board member for this district and as a high school teacher at the high school that receives those students. And so the person that is lucky enough to work in our district will benefit from that, knowing that they have various allies to support the good work that we need to continue doing in our district. In terms of some of the challenges, I really appreciate what Mr. Hollinshead was mentioning is sort of like, how do we balance the art and science of teaching and learning? So some of the feedback that our staff have given us, our teaching staff, is they feel like boxed in. They feel like, they're having to teach to a test. And we know that that can be very demoralizing for many of our staff. And so we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to practice the art of what they do as professionals, while also, of course, ensuring that we're using best practices, research-based work to advance the work forward. And I'm confident that we can mesh those two. I also would mention some of the challenges that ensuring that all of our students and families feel welcome at some of our school sites. So some of the feedback that I've received from parents is that they don't always feel welcome at the school sites. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. I would love to dig a little bit deeper on that. And I gave our staff the benefit of the doubt in the sense that all of our staff I know are there to serve kids and want to do what's best for kids. But perhaps there's things that are taking place, unconsciously, right, that are causing our families to say, hey, I don't feel, welcome here for some reason. And also for our young people as well, we want to make sure that they feel welcome at every school site. And then one of the things that we've talked about as a board a couple of months ago was looking at our diversity data. So that's an area of improvement for us. We know that we're lacking in the diversity of our teaching staff, our administrator staff, and also our district staff. But the good thing is that we're willing to take an honest look, right, at what we're doing well and room for improvement. And so I'm excited to work with our next superintendent to continue to advance that work.
That's a great segue, Ricardo. Thank you, because we want to hear about challenges as well, and you've been able to balance that. Linda, things that are on the horizon, challenges. I'm just going to use an example. For many districts, when we do this with, they talk about challenges, for example, things that perhaps Mr. Valencia mentioned. But what challenges come to mind, Linda, with regards to the school district?
Before I start, I think you skipped John.
Oh, no, I thought we went to John. Oh, maybe you're right. I could be wrong. John, strengths in the district?
And then back to Ricky.
Yes, and circling back to Mr. Latta. Yes, I'm sorry. John, what might you consider the strengths in the district right now?
Yeah, no, actually it's okay. Truthfully, I was really for me, I think that I would have said pretty much what Ricardo said as far certainly about our community support. And I think that's probably one of our greatest assets is our parent community and community outside of our families is that support for the school district. So yeah, I think, and I think that's probably, that's one of our greatest assets. So I would have echoed that. And so that's why I was fine. I wasn't going to, I was fine with it because he got it.
Got it. Thank you, John.
Sure.
Mr. Latta, strengths, things that you're proud of in the district, things that
I'm proud of, I think the next superintendent that we do get needs to know that our board is very strong and cohesive and that we're very open-minded and we take in everything that, was brought to us and, and we agree to disagree, but he knows that we've come to a conclusion that the best thing is for the kids and that we're a very strong board.
Very important. Very important. Linda, okay to switch to challenges next?
It is.
Yep.
I think, well, we have over the past 5 years, almost getting closer now to 6, we have worked, and I say we very, very collectively, not the board in particular, we have been taking steps to move toward building systems and processes that will better serve our students. We all want our students to become successful citizens. And I think one of the challenges that still is there is some level of resistance to change, but I think it mostly comes from not fully understanding the why this is going to give us a better result. And I'm not talking just about a test score. I do believe, we genuinely want to address the needs of our students at every level, students and their families, their emotional level, their academic level, their overall well-being, their understanding of not just what goes on in school, but also outside of school, to really become a productive member in our community or in our society. So I think there is still that challenge that we are facing.
So can I capture that this way, or is this accurate? It may be too bold. There is a general level of resistance to change. Is that accurate?
Okay, Luke, I'm looking at you. I
I
do.
would say that change is a force. I mean,
Yeah.
Michael Holland will tell you.
Yeah.
Holland will tell you that. And that definitely has ramifications. There's situations that people don't understand.
You're on
the why.
mute. You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was.
You guys are all close enough, we can kind of hear you. So that part was good.
Yeah, Mrs. Ford, I was going to maybe add, addressing the phenomena of change is,
Yeah.
it exists. So how one might approach it, how one might create that professional learning community for the change accordingly.
I think it is moving forward, but there are still some areas where there is resistance.
Yeah, and you're not alone, ladies and gentlemen, in
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
That's
I think we know that.
That's why I may be general.
And I don't really want to make that sound completely negative, because it is part of human nature. But if we can get everyone to understand that, what we want and what we need to do are meshed together, we want our students to be successful at every level. And I'll stop.
Yeah, I didn't want to advance the conversation too much, but much of what the trustees are talking about and desiring, we will at some later point in time create questions for the candidates around these topics, whether it's community and staff engagement, communications, accountability, management, student achievement, equity, leadership. We, in conjunction with you, of course, will create these questions that hit these points, so that you're going to be asking questions of these candidates in an interview that address these things and how you might be able to judge them accordingly.
But this, I guess the other part, that all of these conversations that we have help David and myself get a better understanding of the district. And as we talk to all the people that we're going to talk to, and we're going to see surveys, and you're going to see people that are going to be able to give comments,
Gotta mute.
it gives us some background. And so, change isn't fun.
It's not.
And you've been through a heck of a lot of change if you think in the last 2 years, where technology and the use of technology and all the things from everybody. I mean, it's been hard. So it's not a surprising thing, but it helps us understand at least the context of this stuff. So, okay.
May I go to Mr. Laura now?
Yeah,
Challenges?
I'm thinking right on the same line as Mrs. Cordero, what she said, just to put it as, that's really valid.
Very good.
Okay.
I think part of the importance too is to say again, it takes time to move through some systems and some processes. And sometimes time is a major challenge. And I don't know how anyone is going to fix that, but I do know that in this rigor of trying to professionally develop the opportunities of learning for teachers, for staff, there's a lot of stuff, items, learning that has to take place. And in order for us as educators to close the gap on our students, sometimes we need to close that gap on what we're trying to actually achieve. And I know time is a major piece. We've looked at ways to systematically give them time to come aboard and use professional development, and maybe even look at our professional development, with opportunities for choices like have been done in the past, and I mean the last couple of years cycle, and finding something for everyone I know is difficult, but sometimes we have to find something that is going to be in the making of those systems and processes so that we can keep our students at the forefront of giving them the best opportunity to learn with the best materials available. So in saying that, again, change is that force that has to happen. And as an old timer, things aren't being done the way they used to be when I was around, because it's not what is needed per se. There has to be a stronger focus to push this gap closed. And again, working smarter does help that process. It's understanding it all as I'm sitting over here trying to understand it all on this side. As an educator, trying to understand it all also is internalizing it with a lot of sometimes resistance, because you're trying to survive in this realm of, you get COVID, you get distance learning, you also get new curriculum, you also get, there's just a lot of things coming at them. And I understand that. And I understand the challenge for teachers. And I think in part of this as a major challenge is for our educators, our professionals, to try to find those happy mediums also. Right. Because it is difficult. And I do want to honor, the job that all of our professionals are doing, because it is a hard task. Just trying to do.
There was an article in EdSource just over the last couple of days with regards to how might you peel back some of those things that we're facing, but still reach the core aspects of what you want to do. Very similar to an onion.
Right.
So, I understand that.
So that answer had so many layers. I was trying to figure out how to encapsulate it in,
My onion.
five words or less. And part at the end, I was wondering if it was also relating to dealing with all the learning how to deal with the issues of COVID as it relates to student achievement and staff development and those things in terms of the timepiece. Is that kind of what you were saying, or are you saying?
It's definitely part of that layer of that onion too. I think this onion is huge.
Well, yeah.
So it's part of a piece
I
of
only
that
get about
anyway.
10 words to describe it though.
I
So
know.
you want to encapsulate it for me, or is it COVID related, or is it because you're talking about, I mean, we hit a lot of things in that.
I think it's more than just COVID related. I think it is embracing that kind of change and then all of the change that also has to take place so that we have those systems and processes in place currently to close those academic gaps.
Okay, I can do that one. I mean, because I encapsulated.
I get it.
stuff,
I
yeah.
get it.
Okay.
John, challenges?
Yeah, I think as it relates to a lot of these things, we said that our community was our greatest asset. I think there's a lot of challenges for our community that create challenges in the schools for us, and that means getting through to their kids as far as all the things that we aspire to as far as tier 1 practices go out the window if the kid comes to school and they've had some kind of happening at home that has them completely not on task or what have you. I mean, I think the a fair number of our families, given their socioeconomic status, struggle with things that really affect how they can engage or be engaged. And I think that's a challenge. It's I think not something that I would say, like Linda was saying, as a negative, but that's a challenge. We talk all the time in our meetings about wraparound services for all kinds of things and about the breadth of challenges that are in every classroom for all of our teachers, even if it is how the kids are coming to school, not only prepared knowledge-wise, but dressed, sleep, any number of those things. And so I just think that's something that we've probably discussed about as a qualification, but that would be probably, I think, the challenge that I think really, as Vito, you guys were talking about COVID, this is something that hasn't gone away. And I think this is, one of the reasons that we have gone through several iterations of different curricula or different things that we've attempted or directions that we've really focused on, and the needle doesn't move as much as we'd like it to. So that, anyways, I don't want to get too wordy, but that's essentially what I would say is our asset is a challenge.
I understand that there's a lot of spokes that come out of that challenge, whether it's communications or parent engagement, that type of thing. So, I think that social economic status is a challenge for many school districts that are being faced with this right now. Mr. Valencia? Challenges?
Yeah, I appreciate that challenge is being mindful of the fact that we do still have families that are struggling with loss of life, right? We do have families that have lost work, and so looking at making sure that we are knowledgeable about how to support our students with social emotional learning is going to be really key. Somebody who has a good understanding, right, of how those wraparound services can, right, benefit our community. Because I think, what was just mentioned by Mr. Hollinshead is absolutely right. Many of the struggles that our children are having in the classroom often are related, right, to socioeconomic struggles. There is poverty in our community. There is food insecurity in our community, no matter how hard our families are working. And a big part of that is also that the housing, issue that exists, right? We know that over the last couple of years, even though we come from a semi-rural community, the cost of housing in our community has gone up, tremendously, and that's created a major economic strain on our families. So the challenges that we face are also economic in nature, and we need somebody who's knowledgeable on how to address some of those issues so that when our students do come to class, they are in the best position possible to learn. So not just looking at issues that are happening in our school sites, but also how are we connecting with community partners, right? With nonprofits, with funding that might be available to support our families. Immigration services are also a major issue, right? Many of our families are dealing with those types of issues. And so if those are pressures that they're facing and they go unaddressed, then our young people are going to continue to suffer. So somebody with a well-rounded understanding of the struggles that our young people face.
Very good. Yeah, that wonderful diversity that exists there in Santa Maria it's obviously and can be and is a strength, but it also can create a challenge as well. Yes, sir.
And it is interesting, a lot of the strengths are challenges. Just like David said, diversity is a strength. It's also a challenge about what do you do with it, and how do you meet the needs of that? So, okay.
Folks, anything else that you'd like to add or circle back with regards to the characteristics, the professional or personal, or any strengths and challenges that you'd like to add to? If not, I'm going to turn it back over to Fred.
Well, I think we've actually done what we're supposed to do. That was the last part of our homework assignment, was doing this. And yes, Linda?
If I'm understanding correctly, you're going to compile all of that information and then bring it back to us. And we're going to then go through and finalize the last, best, and most helpful job description that we'll be posting.
You wish it would be that easy. What you're going to get is not only your stuff, but you're going to get every one of all these extra groups that you gave us to talk to. They're going to have input. You're going to have 1 million people providing survey information, and you'll get that. These will all be separated out. And then we're going to take and find the major themes through all these things, create an executive summary. And from that, we will bring a draft of a profile for this position. I hate to call it a position description because it really doesn't describe that. It's a profile of what you and what your community is looking for, and you will approve that. And that's what will be coming back. So we have, you're going to be punished with a lot of paperwork, and you're going to see every word that's written and get a chance. Again, it's like WASC, where you do a self-study, and you're going to go through a self-study. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be through a self-study through this process. You're going to be interviewing superintendent candidates that will have done a bunch of homework on your district and will be telling you things about things that they've seen in their places they've worked and how those things might apply to your district. And when this is all said and done, you're going to be pleased with how going back learning. We're going to be learning with you through that part of it. We're like a superintendent for a sliver of your life. In this little experience right now, we are like the superintendent. We're not going to let you, not that you would, we're not going to let you have any issues with Brown Act. We're going to keep you street legal through this whole thing and help you be able to make the decision that you need to make to find the best candidate to select. Okay.
We do, however, have a closed session portion.
Yes. Tonight they have there's a resolution or something that they're going to deal with, and then we'll be into closed session after that. So our part of this, so we've just concluded our part of the work that we needed to do in record time, I might add, and which is good. And so we'll stand back and we'll be spectators, and we'll join you in closed session when it's appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I lost my picture.
Oh, hit right here. Hit right here. I got it. I did this before.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Team, we're done. Our piece is done, right?
So are we going out, or what are we doing?
We still
No,
have.
we have one more piece of business.
And then we'll.
Next on our agenda, and we don't need a motion to approve the discussion, do we? It was just discussion
Right.
with regard to item A.
Yes.
So item B, we do once again need to have a resolution recognizing the state of emergency and authorizing teleconferenced meetings pursuant to AB 361. So do we need to review what that criteria is, or will someone make a motion?
I'll make-
Yeah, it is the same criteria, yes.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Education adopt resolution 21-08, resolution recognizing the state of emergency and reauthorizing telecom meetings pursuant to AB 361 to make the finding that the current circumstances meet the requirements of AB 361 and the government code section 54953 to conduct remotely as presented.
I second.
It has been moved by Mr. Laura, seconded by Mrs. Flores, to adopt Resolution 21-08, which is the resolution that allows us to continue to meet remotely or virtually. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hollinshead? Oh, he's muted.
You there, John? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Hi. Me.
Mr. Valencia?
Aye.
Mr. Lara?
Aye.
Mrs. Flores?
Aye.
Mrs. Cordero?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
That's the first time you've been muted, John.
And you couldn't see me raising my hand.
Oh, we could make a joke about that too, but it might not be appropriate. All right, that concludes our special board meeting, open session. We will officially adjourn to closed session for a bit further discussion with our consultants, and then report out that this portion of the